pop, girlies, pop, girlies, pop, girlies, pop, 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 pop,
Okay,
girlies.
Karen.
Uh,
Whoa.
do you guys like to scat?
No.
Not
I was
usually.
in a jazz choir and I had a scatting solo at a concert once.
Oh,
Are you
wow.
serious?
Shoo-ba-da-dee, bop, 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 ba-da-ba-doop.
Zabba-da-ba-ba-bo.
Oh yeah, that video of that TV show from that TV show. Is
Yeah.
do you call it penis or do you call it pen 15?
Pen
I think
15.
you call it Pen 15, yeah.
I love that video.
It's
Zoobity
so
bop,
funny.
Zabba-da-ba-ba-bo.
zabadoo-ba-da-ba-da-ba-zap.
It's so good.
It's
And
so good.
so that new Marina song came out, Butterfly, and I think that song sounds exactly like that. Zabba-da-ba-ba-bo. That's the first thing that I thought of.
Wait,
Um,
Marina's back. Is Levi living?
yes. Uh, well,
No.
no.
New
The thing
single this
about
Friday.
the second that Marina lost the diamonds, she also lost a lot of the
Was Fruit with the
interest.
diamonds?
Fruit, yeah, fruit, and just fruit just celebrated its 10th anniversary. I love fruit,
Oh, wow.
but
Correct.
the last few releases have not captivated me in the same way. Let's just say that.
Because isn't the double album when she lost the diamonds?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when I learned that I should never listen to Alex ever because in 2019, he listened to the album before I did, and he told me that it was the best album of her career and it was incredible. And then I listened to it and I was like, "Are you on drugs?" And then later in the year, Norman fucking Rockwell came out the week
Right.
after Lover came out, and so I was still on my Swiftie kick, and I was like, I'm gonna get to this later. Alex listened to it, and he said that it was like mid and like not that good. And then finally listened to it in December, and I'm like, Alex, you are the stupidest person I've ever met in my entire life. This is the greatest thing I've ever heard. So that's how I learned that I can never I just can't listen to anything he says.
I remember in class one time, like that semester, and I was like really into it, like getting into Norman, and then I was like, Have you listened?" He's like, Levi's like, "I haven't gotten around it. I heard it's just not that
Yeah, I know.
everything."
Yeah, my he was feeding me lies and propaganda. I don't know who was
So
feeding
funny
him.
though.
Well, yeah, and he said specifically that happiness is a butterfly was a chop ho, which just is like happiness is not a chop ho. Happiness is a serve. That's what
Yeah.
that is. I mean, you
Happiness is a
just
diva.
happiness is a divalicious diva, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, are we all ready for a very happy album?
Yes.
Yeah.
But before we get into the most joyous music of our lives, let's get off some sizzle sizzle hot tracks. The tracks that have been inspiring us this week for those listeners who don't know what hot tracks are.
Yes.
Wow. It's like
Oh,
you're in that SNL skit where J-Law where she's like the morning radio person and they're at like 4 a.m. She goes, "It's 4 a.m. McDonald's opens in just 2 more hours." Do you remember that skit?
I do not know her. No, I
Oh,
don't.
you would
No.
love that skit because then they
I
start
don't know
doing
her.
rapping and scatting.
That's me.
Whoa. Full circle.
Full
Yep.
circle. Scatting is fun. Joni likes to scat. Joni loves jazz.
Yeah.
Real.
Yeah, I bet she scats.
Yep.
Well, on that note, Drew, what's your hot track?
My hot track, I've been listening to a lot this week, kind of getting into old things and new things. And I've been working on like a new playlist because I haven't made playlists in a while. Um, but my hot track is probably my favorite song on the playlist as of now. It's Relationships by Haim, the
Oh,
new Haim
Yes.
song.
It's so good.
Oh my God, it's
smash.
everything. It's a smash. The video is a smash. Like everything
They
about it
always
is just
deliver with the
everything.
videos. Their videos are great.
Yes.
And
Have
like
you guys
not every
watched the video for this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So good, right?
Yeah. I mean hot.
Yeah, Drew Starkey.
Yeah.
Cutie.
Yeah.
Um,
No, they're great. I love
yeah,
Haim.
yeah.
Okay.
I think that's all I have to say on that. If you haven't listened to it, obviously go listen.
Yeah.
Maria, what is yours?
Yes. Well, my hot track is very inspired by the album that we're talking about today because I've like really just been like taking a break from Mayhem with Joni because obviously we're still
That is
in.
such a vibe shift.
It's so insane. It's so crazy. But it's like obviously we're still very much in the immediate release of Mayhem, so I've just been like listening to it a lot, but I'm trying not to overdo it. So I'm like I've obviously been listening to Joni and then I've just been like listening to other podcasts. So that's like really it music wise. But since Joni Mitchell is very much in the, folk sphere, I kind of revisited some of my favorite folk music adjacent to Joni Mitchell and just like all the music that was coming out around this time. And one of my favorite albums ever is the first Crosby, Stills, and Nash album. Like it's just the three of them, the self-titled album. But when they added Neil Young into the mix, they released the album called Deja Vu that has a Joni Mitchell cover on it. And they cover Woodstock on that second
Mm.
album. And it's an amazing cover. And I love Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young like so
Well, and
much.
it's interesting
So,
that you bring them up, considering the role that Mr. Nash plays in the
yes.
inspiration of Miss Blue.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Very
all
much
connected.
intertwined. It's all connected. Hashtag Laurel Canyon.
Uh,
Hashtag blue. Hashtag,
Hashtag Joni
uh,
Mitchell updates Brazil.
hashtag Joni Crave. So, yeah. So Woodstock, the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young version is my hot track.
Cool. I've also kind of like Drew. I've kind of been listening to just like a random mix of stuff. I don't feel like there's been like a obsession that has like sunk its teeth into me this week. I have been listening to a lot of Joni, both albums before and following Blue. I've really just kind of been in like my Joni state of mind, but I've also been in a lot of other states of mind. And I feel like I don't give enough respect to the queen of all queens, the mother of all mothers to me, Miss Taylor. I feel like just because the podcast is kind of aligned with like my like Madonna genes awakening, I feel like I've given her more airtime than than Miss Tay, and Miss Tay's come to reclaim her time. And so my hot track is one of my favorite vault tracks she's ever done across all the Taylor's versions. It's from the 1989 Taylor's version, and it is Say Don't Go. Say Don't Go is like this like 80s kind of like power ballady moment. I think it is so catchy. The lyrics are great. I love the melody. And it's also co-written with camp icon Diane Warren. So that's even more reason to love it. And I want to shout
Camp
out
icon.
one of my best friends, Irene, because Irene does not love Say Don't Go, and that's a big disagreement that we have. And
Wait,
so,
what?
yeah, she does not get the Say Don't Go love. I don't get it at all. Say Don't God is everything to me. I love Say Don't Go. It literally is like I turn into, you know, that like scene from White Chicks when they're doing like the dance battle. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Drew does.
Yes.
And like there's like the other girls do this like dance move and they like do like their thing with the arms and like their legs. There's a gif of that and whenever the chorus plays, I I am that gif. I literally reenact it. Like I was walking home from the gym today and I was reenacting the gif. So, yeah, I love Say Don't Go. Love Say Don't Go. Real quick, before we get into everything, I feel like we never like tell people to like subscribe and follow us, and I feel like we probably should do that more. So,
Oh,
uh,
yes.
Yeah.
we are everywhere. We're everywhere. We are on Instagram at Pop Girlies Pod. We are on YouTube. Maria, what's our YouTube called?
Pop Girlies podcast.
Well, there you go. We're kind of like
Yes.
we low key like slayed on the podcast. I mean, on YouTube.
Yeah. So our YouTube channel is just called Pop Girlies. It's at Pop Girlies Pod. And yeah, all of our episodes also get uploaded there. And then again, just in case you happen to be listening on YouTube and have a thought, leave a comment,
Leave us
leave
a
a like,
comment.
please.
We
Like I
so
would
will
just love
respond to you. We so would respond.
Yeah.
100%. I'm waiting for the day we get a comment so I can leave an
Even if
essay
it's
in
hate, like
response.
we kind of respond.
Yeah, we'd call you Chop
Yeah.
Ho.
Obviously. Yeah. So please
Remember, you are a chapo.
remember you're a Chapo.
And then also, if you're listening to this in podcast version and you are a member of Pop Girlies Nation, feel free to leave us a 5-star review and tell all your friends, share the gospel, if you will, of Pop
Right.
Girlies.
Share the scripture.
Share the scripture. It's the hashtag movement.
Right.
Hashtag pop girlies crave
Hashtag Pop Girlies updates Brazil.
Brazil.
Okay. I feel like everything is out of the way. Are we ready for depression?
Let's do
Sure.
it.
It's kind of weird. I've been so happy lately. And so it's kind of weird that we're doing this like maybe one of the saddest albums of all time. I've kind of been thinking about that today because I was in such a happy mood and I'm like, I've been so happy the last few days. Like it's kind of weird that we're doing this during happiness. I don't know. Just interesting. Okay. So this is this is a shorter script for me than normal. Because I feel like there's a lot of mythology behind Blue, and I talk a little bit about this deeper into kind of my background, but I feel like a lot of that which people talk about are like the relationships that have inspired the record, and like that stuff's interesting in kind of like a pop culture way and like a music history kind of a way, but what I love about this podcast is talking about the music itself. And so I really just wanted to kind of focus as much on that. So I don't have as much background as I kind of normally do, especially with like the last albums that I did, the huge, gigantic Madonna chaos that I unleashed on the world. So yeah, I think it's only 4 pages and it barely goes into the fourth page. So that's pretty brief for me.
T.
So, okay, but let's get into one of my favorite albums of all time, Blue. So, background. Joni Mitchell, in case you don't know, is a Canadian singer-songwriter and painter. Also, fun fact, she considers herself a visual artist before a musician, which I think is very, very interesting. She like identifies primarily as a painter, which is like so silly considering that she is like one of the most influential musicians and songwriters who's ever lived. But she came up in nightclubs in Canada before moving to the United States in 1965. She started first receiving attention as songs she had written, such as Chelsea Morning and Both Sides Now, were covered by other artists and became hits. The success of those songs led to her signing a record deal and releasing her debut album, Song to a Single, in 1968. And so by the early 70s, she had released 3 studio albums and she'd become an iconic generational figure due to songs like Big Yellow Taxi and Woodstock. She was also in a years long relationship with the singer songwriter Graham Nash, which we kind of referenced earlier, but that was falling apart. They started dating in 1968. And so then by 1970, that was like kind of, disintegrating. And also in 1970, she had begun feeling isolated and burnt out by her newfound success and fame. So she decided to take a break from touring and she went to Europe. So while she was in the village of Matala on the island of Crete, is it Crete? Is that the island in Greece? Crete, yeah. On
Yeah.
the island of Crete in Greece, she began a relationship with an American named Carrie Raditz. And that inspires some songs on the record. Upon returning to America, she came back to Graham Nash, but found that he had already moved on and was in a serious relationship. So shortly after this, she entered an intense love affair with James Taylor. And in addition to being romantic partners, they would also become musical partners, as evident on Blue. And just kind of before we get into the record itself, there is a very famous quote from a 1979 Rolling Stone article where Joni explains her state of mind as she created the album. And it's something that I go to a lot. And this is a quote that I've used kind of to describe myself like in therapy before. It's just a very like, it's always just really resonated with me. And I think it's such a fascinating way to like look at an artist describing their process. So this is the quote. The Blue album, there's hardly a dishonest note in the vocals. At that period of my life, I had no personal defenses. I felt like a cellophane wrapper on a pack of cigarettes. I felt like I had absolutely no secrets from the world, and I couldn't pretend in my life to be strong or to be happy. But the advantage of it in the music was that there were no defenses there either. I just love the imagery of that. Like I love the imagery of her being a cellophane wrapper on a pack of cigarettes. I think that's just so evocative. So yeah, I just love the way that she talks about her work. So going into the album, Blue was recorded in early 1971, beginning in January. It contains 10 songs, all of which were written by Joni, and all songs were written specifically for the album except for Little Green. That's kind of the only older song that exists on the record. That was originally written in 1967. She's also credited as the sole producer on the album, in addition to playing the Appalachian dulcimer, guitar, and piano. James Taylor, like I mentioned before, plays guitar on 4 songs: All I Want, California, Carrie, and A Case of You. Also, kind of while we're on this note, a fun fact is, which is crazy because these are like 2 of my favorite albums of all time, but she was recording Blue in the same studio down the hall at the same time that Carole King was recording Tapestry. And so,
Whoa.
isn't that crazy?
That's so crazy.
Eh,
Creating legend after legend.
Like, it's insane. And so,
This is a
obviously,
place for
like,
legends.
literally. And
For
obviously,
some
there's like,
reason, I knew that. I was like waiting for you to say that, but for some reason, maybe is it in the Carole King musical?
girl, I don't know. I've never seen the
Because
Carole King
that,
musical.
oh, for some reason, I thought we've talked about having both seen it.
I mean, if I ever said that, I was lying because I've just simply never seen it. I love Carole King, but I've just the musical has not made it into the Levi brain yet. Kitty,
Right,
okay, my
right.
cat's on my
It'll
lap
get
literally.
there.
But fun fact is James Taylor and like Carole King obviously have like a very established like, musical relationship. But Joni actually sings background vocals on one of my favorite songs on Tapestry. We Used to Love Me Tomorrow. Her and James Taylor are both singing background vocals on that, which is really crazy. And like, I don't know, sometimes when I come across a fact like this, I get like nostalgic for like this time in music, like when all of these like seminal artists and albums were existing alongside each other in real time. Like, I just kind of can't imagine living in a time like that. Like, obviously, very important artists exist today and important albums get made today, but there's just something like really beautiful about that time. I think looking back on it. So, anyways, just a fun fact for everybody. Kind of analyzing the record a bit more, this album is regarded as Joni's most confessional record. However, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to go into greater detail than I already have about each song's inspiration. All that information is out there if you'd like to find it. Like, if you want to do the what line is inspired by who, like you can do that. But I think we often perform paternity tests on songs, specifically confessional narrative songs by female artists, in a way that undermines the craft that is put into creating lasting music. Blue isn't what it is because there are songs inspired by Graham Nash and James Taylor. It is what it is because it represents what makes Joni Mitchell such a singular musical force. I think like Taylor's expressed her frustrations at this before, that she feels like, especially early in her career, people just performed paternity tests on her songs, and that was the driving point of the conversation, and in a way that can like make what she does look kind of cheap or gossipy, when there's an insane amount of craft and ability and talent that goes into creating music. So yeah, I don't really feel interested in pursuing that more. I want to talk about the music because that's why I love Blue and that's why I love Joni Mitchell. So this is a folk album. It is starker than the more produced Ladies of the Canyon, which is the album that precedes it. Uh, and Blue and the follow-up album, For the Roses, would kind of represent the last pure folk albums she would create. So the album after For the Roses, Court and Spark, that's like kind of considered her poppiest record. It's the only one that had kind of like multiple hit songs. And then after that, she does a really hard left turn and goes into jazz. And that's kind of, the way that her career goes after that. So this Blue and then For the Roses are really kind of represent the pinnacle of like folk Joni and folk singer-songwriter Joni. These songs are raw and unvarnished. They are tales of love and loss and the way that those two things are often intertwined. And this is a very heavy album. I feel like this album kind of exists in the cultural lexicon as like being one of, if not the ultimate, like breakup albums. And it is intensely sad, which I'm sure that we will touch on. But I also think it is important to point out that it is also very funny. I think this album is very funny. It's very clever. It's very witty. Even in like some of the most depressing moments, like the last time I saw Richard, I think that like she has a very dry, witty sense of humor in that song. Like she's very much making fun of herself. And I think that like that's something that again can be glossed over, and like this can get characterized as just, a weepy, sad folk album, and it is that, but it's also something else. I mean, throughout the album, she has so many different things. She's such a multifaceted narrator and kind of central musical character. Joni is philosophical, she's mournful, she's hopeful, revelatory, poetic, jaded, burned, and broken. She's all of these things at the same time. It really kind of goes back to what she said earlier about the cellophane wrapper. Like she's not hiding anything, everything is exposed. And because her lyrics are so incredible, and she writes with such specificity, you really get such a grasp on who she is, what she was going through at this time in her life, and the way that she was feeling about things. So, reception and legacy. Upon release, oh, I skipped over something. The album was released on June 22nd, 1971. Carrie was released as a single in August 1971, and California was released as a single in October 1971. I mean, Joni's not like a really commercial artist, so this peaked at number 3 on the UK albums chart and at 15 on the Billboard Hot 200. Now, reception and legacy. So, upon the release, this album received critical acclaim. There's a review from Rolling Stone in 1971 that has something really interesting. So, this quote is from that review. Uh, in portraying herself so starkly, she has risked the ridiculous to achieve the sublime. The results, though, are seldom ridiculous. On blues, she has matched her popular music skills with the purity and honesty of what was once called folk music, and through the blends, she has given us some of the most beautiful moments in recent popular music. I think that like does such a great job at really showing like how vulnerable and like honest she's being, and like that could have come off in maybe kind of a ridiculous way, but instead it achieves what this reviewer refers to as, a sublime moment. It has continued to garner acclaim throughout the years, and it is now considered to be one of the greatest albums of all time. In 2000, the New York Times chose it as one of the 25 albums that represented turning points and pinnacles in 20th century popular music. In the 2020 update of the 500 greatest albums of all time, Rolling Stone ranked it as the third best album ever made, also the highest ranking album by a woman. On that note, in 2017, NPR listed it as the greatest album ever made by a woman. It's also been cited as one of the greatest albums ever made by Consequence of Sound, Entertainment Weekly, Time, NME, The Guardian, and Uncut. So that's what I have to kind of, set the scene for Blue. I'm so excited to talk about this album. I feel like it's so juicy and like there's so much to talk about, which is funny because like a lot of it like musically is very straightforward. I mean, this is like a very much like a guitar album. There's not like a lot of really complicated instrumentation, but it really is just a remarkable piece of music, and it's very different from anything that we've covered so far on Pop Girlies. So I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to think. I th-
Yay.
I think how do we want to do this? I think I'm gonna have Maria start us off.
Whoa.
Little blue going on for the Teen Vogue party.
You get a little bit of blue in my hair for the Teen Vogue party. Yes. Okay. Well, yes, thank you so much, Levi. So yeah, I mean, kind of like I said before, I mean, specifically when it comes to folk music, like really my primary touch point is like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Like I listened to them so much. And like freshman year of college, I got really into folk music, but for some reason, like really never creeped into like Joni Mitchell world for some reason. I mean, there's obviously songs of hers that I was familiar with before, but I'd never listened to a full album of hers before. So yeah, this was definitely something a little bit new for me. I had actually listened to Blue in full before, so like I just lied, but it was a couple of years ago. It was when I was listening to quite a few of the albums that's on the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time. Because Blue is It's in the top five. I can't remember where exactly they placed it.
Three.
Um, three. There we go. So yeah. So yeah, listened to it, but it was while Joni's music was not on Spotify. So I listened to it on YouTube. Like someone had just, like posted it to YouTube. So I listened to it there, but I know that's why I didn't like go back and listen to it a whole bunch because it was like going out of my way on Spotify. So not to sound like a zoomer or anything, but kind of listened to it once and I was like, okay, cool, crossing it off the list. So I'm really glad that we all now have the luxury of being able to listen to our music whenever on Spotify. So yeah, I probably listened to this like 4 or 5 times all the way through, just over the last like week or so. And I just want to say for an album that's so simple in instrumentation and being recorded in like the early 70s. This sounds like it was recorded today. Like whoever's remastering this music is a wizard because it's crazy. It literally sounds like if you're listening to it on like earbuds or headphones, it literally sounds like you're in the room and it's just being performed around you. Like it's so crystal clear and her vocals sound so incredibly clear and resonant like while you're listening to it. So it's just so cool that we're able to remaster music like to sound so nice and clean. So love, love, love that. And like the whole thing I think is really interesting. I love how the instrumentation kind of flips back and forth between piano ballads and then more upbeat guitar, like acoustic guitar moments. I thought that was all super cool. But yeah, I mean, I think the narrative of this whole album is just like really fun to follow. I mean, obviously it's like dripping in emotion. So I think the storytelling's really cool. And I do think again, like songwriting where you're like mentioning people by name is like very intriguing. We've talked about that a whole bunch with like Taylor and the Beatles and Paul McCartney and like et cetera, et cetera. I also feel like for Swifties in general probably don't talk about Joni Mitchell as much as they should. Like obviously Levi, like you're here as like Swiftie number one, being like, I
Yeah.
love Joni Mitchell, I'm in my Joni Mitchell bag. And I feel like Swifties in general should be like paying more
Well, because
dues
there's
to
beef.
Well, yeah, because
well,
there's
I
the
know the
beef.
yeah, I mean, because that's the beef about the movie, and then she goes, if she's
Right.
singing good luck.
Yeah, if she's singing good luck.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, like, sure, whatever. But like, I mean, it's just such a clear, direct correlation. And I'm like, this should be a constant conversation, to be honest, and no one really talks about it.
Well, and especially, I mean, Taylor has like at the time, Taylor referenced Blue as being her favorite album of all time in the Red era. And
Oh, okay.
it had has said that like that is the greatest album of all time before. And a lot of the reasons that she said, there's a clip I don't know how you can find it. Look it up on YouTube. But she talks about this honesty and like this intense vulnerability that you get when you listen to the record. And I very much think that like Red is obviously that a reference to Blue, and like on the original album cover, the photograph I think is very similar and obviously a reference to the Joni Mitchell album cover. Like to me, I've always seen Red as kind of like her paying tribute in a way to Joni, and then
Mm,
because
Yeah,
of
because
the
well, because it's interesting because Red in Taylor's discography is probably like I would say it's very much different than like I would say other albums of hers compare way more to Blue than Red does.
oh yeah, like musically for sure. But I
Yeah.
think that like Taylor kind of I think that she saw Red as like
No, yeah, yeah.
her doing Blue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, like I love you saying that because like it is her like paying respect, but it's not her like doing it, you know?
Because it's also like at the time she always referred to Red as like her only true classic like breakup album, and you don't really get more classic breakup album than like Blue,
Right.
except for maybe like Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. So
yeah.
yeah, and on the side of Twitter that I live on, like there are references to the Joni Taylor, but it's mostly in terms of like Girl So Confusing, Joni and Taylor, or or like The Substance. Like that's what
Yeah,
it is.
that's funny.
But I agree with you. Like she really is. such an obvious like touch point for Taylor that doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
They also look so much. They look so similar, like in
They're
this era
yeah,
specifically.
Oh,
especially
for
in the
sure.
that Midnight's photo shoot.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, because Red is the era that she cut the bangs and started wearing straight hair. Like she
Like,
literally was doing Joni
and
Mitchell
she
cosplay.
and she went boho chic.
Yeah, she literally like
Yeah.
all, I mean, she used to have those curly ringlets, and then all of a sudden she's walking around with the high cheekbones and the bangs and the hair and the guitar. I mean, she literally is like she was auditioning for the part of Joni Mitchell in that failed movie,
Yeah, girl.
which, if she's singing, good luck.
If she's singing, good luck. Well, love. Speaking of singing, I
Are you gonna do a song first, Marie?
oh, I'm gonna sing for us. Maybe later. Maybe later.
She thought about it.
I was like, well, okay. Um, so yeah, I mean, like speaking of singing though, I love all of Joni's like vocal inflections across the album, and no one nowadays sings like this anymore. Like it would be so rare for someone to just kind of like have such raw vocals like this and have it be so well, what's the word I'm looking for? Because I know that like Levi, you had mentioned just about like how like all of like how like the process of recording these vocals and all of that, but like it just sounds so like sincere. Like it sounds like you're with her and she's telling you a story about like, oop, this happened and now I'm upset or like whatever. So it sounds very sincere and like instantaneous. So it almost sounds like there's like the raw emotion of like, oh, like let's do the first take. And almost every version of the vocals on these tracks sound like the first take in the best way possible of like this was me pouring my heart out and the first take is what we're going for. Like that's kind of what the vocals across the album kind of give me because they're so sincere. So I really love that. Some like one of my favorite moments on the whole album is the interpolation of Jingle Bells on River. I am obsessed with that so much. And I kind of enjoy too, like almost the seasonality of the album because the piano tracks feel very cold and wintry, and the acoustic tracks feel like very bright and sunny and summery. So I feel like there's kind of like a hot and cold dialogue throughout the whole album. But yeah, I just thought that was so fun. That's one of my favorite moments. Um, Also the album cover, so lovely. What a lovely shade of blue. I'm not sure how everyone feels about it because we've had crazy conversations about album covers that we don't agree on. But yeah, I think the album cover's great. But those are really my thoughts. Yeah, I mean, such obviously a timeless album. It sounds so amazing. And yeah, it's just classic. So yeah.
Yay!
Yay.
Yes.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah, Drew, give us some
Okay.
blue.
Well, blue is my second favorite color. So
It's
like,
my
well,
second favorite color. I know your first favorite color.
yeah. I don't think there's a yellow album.
No.
No.
Well, there's a yellow song.
Well, Coldplay.
Coldplay, mama.
Love you, Irene.
Yeah, Irene. This really is the Irene episode, except talking about all things like that she is against.
Yeah.
Maria, for context, Irene thinks that Coldplay is a front and like that they're not
Four.
like real. She thinks, I don't know, Irene, let us know if you think it's like a front for the mob or like what, but she doesn't think they're like real.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's intriguing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so
Next week, tune in for us doing parachutes.
um
JK.
JK. Um so yeah, I had listened to this in college. Um but I only really listened to it like a couple times because it's so horribly depressing. Um but I was so excited to get into it now because um I don't know, just like in the past couple of years kind of like gotten into wanting to learn more about her as like an artist. And there have been a couple times in the past couple of years where I've kind of gone into specific songs. Like I'll run into like an article or something that mentions a Joni Mitchell song, and then I'll want to go listen to it more. But I was really excited to listen to this as like a whole work just because I knew how important it is to music and everything like that. Um, Something that I love so much about it, it's obviously perfect, but I think it is like the biggest masterclass in like length. I think like there's not a better album that is like there's not a better 10 track run on an album. Like there's not one dip in it, which I found really amazing, especially kind of what Maria was talking about, like how she felt that a lot of the songs, they're using the same kind of instrumentation, but they're so different. Um, so yeah, and especially like with not a lot of like vocal, obviously production or anything like that. It just, I don't know, it was really striking to me how there was not one song that I felt was too similar or even like similar at all to another one. I thought each one gives you a different kind of feeling and yeah.
Well, I
So I
love that you
love that.
said that about the vocals because like there are no background vocals on this album. Like
Right. Yeah, yeah. There's
it's
no like
just her
vocal
lead.
production either,
No, there's no
really.
harmony. Like it's just her voice.
Yeah.
And it's like guitars, piano. Like that's really what it is.
Yeah. Which
There's
is
some
like
bass, there's some
insane.
drums. Yeah. But you're
Yeah.
exactly right. Like she keeps your attention the entire time.
Yeah. So I was watching it, this length reminded me a lot. I was watching a Troye Sivan interview, and his last two albums have been 10 tracks. And he like went on a huge tangent in this interview about how he thinks that 10 tracks is the perfect album length, how he'll never do an album that's not 10 tracks. And I was like, oh, like he probably listened to this because this is like the perfect example of like a 10 track album. But yeah, I mean, like the songwriting is obviously insane on this. Like, it's one of those where when you're reading the lyrics in front of you, like every single line is like, oh, well, that was like perfect. There's not a line that's like a waste or even like a line that's not like a perfect kind of poetic thing. Which is obviously like so amazing. Um, But yeah, I really enjoy this. I'll get into like more of my tracks when we get into it, obviously. But I think something else that I love so much about it is kind of what I was talking about her vocals. I think it's like it's it's a feeling that when I listen to it and when I listen to her voice in it, it's a feeling that I haven't like witnessed before, where you feel like, at least I did, I felt like I was watching a video of her like in her bedroom singing it to herself and like crying to herself. And like the vulnerability, I think, went that far, which is something that like I've only really felt like listening to like Taylor's music, to be honest. Like I felt like every song was like her recording it at like midnight. I obviously know it wasn't, but like every song felt like she kind of like the one take thing that Maria was saying. It feels like she's in complete privacy and like being insanely vulnerable, and you hear it in the vocals, which is like something that if a highly produced vocal track nowadays, maybe you wouldn't feel that same way. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously there's just nothing else like this. And I don't think with music now, I don't think that there will be anything like this again, which is like really insane. But yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to say, I guess, for my initial reactions. But yeah, I'm so glad you picked this.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
that, Drew. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay, kind of getting into the Levi Knife thoughts. So obviously this is, my album. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. My relationship with Joni Mitchell came from one of my favorite movies, my favorite Christmas movie, Love Actually. That is the first like real kind of experience I think I had with Joni Mitchell. As anybody would know who's seen the film, like in my mind, the standout scene is the Emma Thompson scene where she is sobbing by herself to the updated 2003 version of Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell in her bedroom alone. I don't want to like spoil the movie for anybody who hasn't seen it, but like she has learned some very devastating news and she's trying to like pull herself together. And it's this incredible scene of her sobbing alone in her bedroom, pulling it together so she can go out and be with her husband and her kids. And I mean, obviously, just like that moment in the film is so touching, but that moment has always stuck with me because it's such a perfect usage of that song. That's I just think one of like the great songs. Like obviously that's not on the album that we're talking about, but Both Sides Now is just like to me it's like in the canon of like great American songs. But that like image of Emma Thompson alone in her room crying, kind of, in the vein of what Drew was talking about, that I feel like is really a great visual representative of what it feels like to be listening to Joni, especially on when she's in this mode, on an album like Blue, where she's very much mining her sadness, and there's like no distance between her and the listener. You feel that intimacy right away. Like no matter where I am when I'm listening to this album, if I have it playing when I'm at the gym, or if I'm on the bus, or if I'm walking somewhere, wherever I am, like I feel that level of intimacy that I would if I was crying to it by myself in my bedroom. So that was my first exposure to Joni, and then Blue, all pretty much because of like the Taylor kind of references and how much she loves that record. That was the first Joni album that I really dived into, and it's an album that really grew on me when I was in high school. I think that like it obviously there's some very like complex melodies happening here. Like she's not like the kind of like earwormy melodist that her contemporaries like, Carole King or Carly Simon are. And so I think like as I've gotten older, I've been able to enter her melodic world more. When I was like a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, I just didn't, I think, have the sophistication to. But this album like really I think probably like hit me in its full force when I was in college. And I just think it's one of the perfect albums. Like I don't want to kind of beat a dead horse because I think Maria and Drew have captured a lot of it, but it is such a masterclass in doing so much with so little. And I think it is a great demonstration that if you have a phenomenal songwriter and a phenomenal vocalist, you really like if the songs don't require it, you don't need to like go all out with bells and whistles. You don't need to hide anything in production. And like I love produced stuff. I love synths. I love things that have interesting, intriguing production. I'm not, advocating for none of that at all. But I think this album is just really representative of like she knew what these songs were and she knew that they didn't need anything. They didn't need a big band. They didn't need background vocalists. They didn't need any harmonies. They didn't need drums in every single song. They didn't need any like, orchestra elements, any strings. Like these songs needed what they got, which is a lot of the time this very vibrant, rhythmic acoustic guitar. That's one of my favorite qualities about the guitars on this album is that they're not sparse. They're not like plucky. They're that those strums are very thick. That's the word that I would use to describe them. And then, somber pianos on songs like River or The Last Time I Saw Richard. So, musically, I just think she's doing exactly what she needs to. And before I touch on the songwriting, I do want to talk about, I don't think that like she's talked enough about as like a vocalist, but she is a true, in my mind, she's such an incredible vocalist. Like, first of all, her range, especially like early on in her career, because her voice is, lowered as she's gotten older. And a lot of that is partly due to age, but also because she was a pretty heavy smoker. And so it's interesting, like her voice kind of like, even like starting in the late 70s, gets a much huskier tone, which is also, beautiful. But in the 60s and early 70s, like, it's such a unique vocal tone. The only way that I can describe it is to me, it truly sounds bell-like because it just has such an immediate clarity. Like her voice really rings, in my opinion, especially when she's in her upper register because she does that a lot in this album. She jumps around a lot. I think an example of that is in A Case of You in that first verse when she sings the melody of "Oh Canada," and then she goes from, being down the octave where she had started the verse, and then she goes up the octave, and it's just this like clear, beautiful vocal rise. It's really lovely. And I just think that she has this quality of her voice that to me it's so mesmerizing. It's hard for me to like think about other things when I'm listening to it. And then, of course, the songwriting is like there's a reason why she is esteemed as a songwriter the way that she is. I think that it's really hard to kind of capture the brilliance that she has here. She is such a master of the song. She has such a way with imagery and with narratives and with setting a scene and with, characterizing people. I mean, I think the way that like she paints Richard on The Last Time I Saw Richard is so fascinating. Carrie is such like a fascinating character on this album that and he pops up multiple times and like he's like so fascinating. And it just makes me think of like what if like you were that guy? Like you were that guy that had like this fling with Joni on an island and you're now immortal in this album and you're depicted as this wild like caveman who is like untethered from society and is of nature. I mean, I just think the way that she's able to create characters with her music and the way that she's able to take what she's experienced in the real world and give them musical form is pretty remarkable. I think that I'll probably get into like specific lyrical moments when we're doing the Holy Trinity because there are some of my favorite lyrics of all time on this record. I will say I think to me a great album pretty much always start strong and end strong. And I think that like this album has such a phenomenal example of excellent opening track and an excellent closing track. The opening line of this record, "I am on a lonely road and I've been traveling," is one of my favorite opening lines of a record ever. I think it's absolutely genius. And then the last track, "The Last Time I Saw Richard," uh, to me, that holds the thesis of the record. To me, the thesis statement of the album is all romantics meet the same fate someday, cynical and drunk and boring someone in some dark cafe. That to me really kind of cuts to the heart of what this album is saying, which is, that hopefulness and romance will decay and turn into something darker and more cynical. And there this song kind of ends with her, hoping that like this is just a phase, those dark cafe days, and that she can, return to some kind of more optimistic version of herself. To me, that really kind of represents what this album is saying in its core. So it's a really incredible record, and I just feel very blessed that like I have Joni Mitchell and that, they reference in Love Actually as like her being Emma Thompson's teacher of her emotional education. And I always think about that because like she's able to like write in such clarity that like she kind of does teach you how to like feel emotions, which is something that Taylor also does for me. So yeah, I love Blue. I definitely think it's earned its place as, one of the classic albums. And I think unless you guys have anything else to say, we should get into some get into some songs.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna start with our me's, our least favorite tracks. And Maria, you're gonna start us off. What is your me for Blue?
Me hee hee. Okay.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
So I just have to say, like, if we had like a free pass to like not say a me,
This would be the one. The
This
me
would be
is
this
the
would be
so
one.
hard.
The me is really
like this.
hard.
It's so hard, and oh my God. So I really just had to go through and choose the one that I just like felt the least like completely entranced by, which is hard because like all of them do such a great job at that. And I was like, man, I just really feel like I can't single one out for like not doing that. But in comparison to all of the rest of these songs, I think are major, major moments. And I think the only one where I just felt like it was a millimeter below the rest in terms of like, whoa, this is unforgettable, unforgettable, unforgettable. I think what mine is going to be is Little Green.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I don't
Sorry.
blame you. It's hard.
It's so hard. Like
It's hard because
it
it's
was the
not
only
shade to
one.
Little Green. That's not
No,
shade to
not at
Little
all.
Green.
Not at all. It was just I would be doing the planet Earth a major disservice if I chose any of the other songs. So that's what I chose.
Wow. Okay,
That's
Yeah.
cool.
so Maria, I was gonna ask you because I thought that this when I listened to it in full, I was like, I bet you this is gonna be Maria's Me. Because did you like go in and look at like all of the lyrics and like the because you don't usually do that when you listen to albums, right?
Not all of the time. I did for some of these songs.
Okay.
Um,
Because I was gonna say I had a moment with Little Green like 2 months ago or something, and I listened to it. It was probably longer than that, but I listened to it and I was like, oh my gosh, because I it's obviously about something like horribly tragic and like awful, but when I listen to it now, I think like, oh my God, like the lyrics are so insane and so insane how she like does that for that topic. But if you didn't know what it was about really, and you didn't know the backstory, I could see why like maybe it didn't hold like the weight of the rest of the songs.
Do you know the backstory, Maria? Like, do you know what that song is about? So Little Green is so the reason why it's the oldest song of this album is it is about the child that she had and gave up for adoption when she was still a poor folk singer in Canada before she became big. She was not in a place where she could raise a child, and so she gave up her daughter for adoption. And that's who Little Green is. This is a song to her. And so like when she's talking when like
I
he went
know,
to
isn't it
California,
so? But like you wouldn't know
you
that.
wouldn't know that. Yeah, you wouldn't know
mm,
that because she says in a very poetic way, but like that's, it's these are the words that she would say to her daughter. Like the guy that she's talking about in the second verse is the father. And then like, when she's saying you're sad and you're sorry, but you're not ashamed, little green have a happy ending, like is her being like, I know that this was the right thing to do, and I want you to have a happy ending, Little Green. Originally, this song, when it was first performed, it was called Kelly Green because Kelly was the name that she had given her daughter in her mind, and then it got changed to Little Green. But also,
mm.
they reconnected later in life. They reconnected in the
I
'90s.
know. I
Oh
was
my
gonna say,
gosh.
yeah, I think you told me that.
So Little Green has a
Yeah.
happy ending. It has a happy ending.
Oh, well, that's lovely. Um,
No, but yeah, like if you didn't know that listening to it, that is something
yeah,
Well,
like,
because it's a
yeah.
very quiet moment musically. Like there's,
yeah,
the least going on. I would say, wouldn't you say that this is like the sparsest track?
Yeah.
yeah. I would say so.
And it's very slow. No, I don't fault you. I mean, this is like an impossible thing to have to pick. Like, I
Yeah,
think,
it's
I think that this is very much a case of like least favorite and not worst song.
Yeah.
yeah. I have like all 10. I have 10 favorites on this album. It's just which one
Yeah,
is
if you
gonna,
have to
yeah.
pick one.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you for the education.
Okay, we got Little
Well, and
Green,
you're validated.
and you're
Thank
validated.
you.
You're
We're
validated to
not
me.
screaming at you.
We're not
Thank
screaming at
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, Drew, what is your meme?
Okay, I'm not gonna be validated for my me. I already know because I know how much Levi likes the song. But my me is and it is just least favorite. And it is the last time I saw Richard.
So you ended up going with the last time I saw Richard.
Yeah, so I was
Because
talking to Levi about this yesterday because I was like, I do not know what like is he gonna kill me for this? Like I did know I knew listening to it that it would be something that he would love. And at first, and I was almost like going back on it because I kept listening to it and I was like, well, this is obviously so good. And it worked and like the album wouldn't work without it because it's obviously such a great closer and it like what Levi was saying, it kind of has the thesis. But I just went through the whole album again and I couldn't find something that I would want to take out over it. Like I think that there are things obviously you could take out, but having heard the whole thing as a piece of work, I wouldn't want to take anything out. So yeah, that's my me.
hmm, I mean, I can't blame you. Like, it's like one of the scenes like
Yeah.
I can't say anything, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it's so I think I guess the reason it would be my me, I think the vocals in it are the vocals for me in this whole album are the complete highlight. I think, and obviously the songwriting, but the songwriting is consistently like 10 out of 10 every single song. So it's hard for me to say like, okay, like this, there was no way to choose which one had the least favorite songwriting. And but there was a way for me to choose like which ones vocally stood out more to me than others. And so that's where I ultimately chose that.
I think that's fair. I mean, you have to kind of come up
Yeah.
with the criteria
Yeah.
that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. My me is different than both of yours. My me is Mild Man. And this is
Oh.
the way that I kind of thought about it is again, I think this is like a perfect album and like Maria said, I have 10 favorites. Like this album doesn't work if you take any of these songs out. However, when I'm thinking about having to pick a least favorite song from a perfect album, an album that I love every single song, the way that I do it is the song that I think feels like the least essential. Like if I erase this song from this record, what about this record's identity, narrative, themes would change the least? And for me, that's My Old Man. And again, I say this as somebody who loves that song. That song to me has some of the best melodic moments on the record, has some incredible vocal moments. I love the imagery of the frying pan. I love
Oh,
Bed's Too Big.
her
It's so good.
the way she switches registers and the we don't need
Yeah.
a piece of paper.
I
Hmm.
love that part. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. However, I just think that if I have to pick this song, what it's about and kind of the feelings that she's talking about, I think get touched elsewhere. Whereas a song like, I don't know, like Carrie, that doesn't really get touched anywhere else. Like that is so unique. Or like California, like that is a very unique narrative. Or like This Flight Tonight, like those songs, those songs don't have connections to me. I'm not connections. Like I just think My Old Man is doing similar things to other songs here that I would prefer. But again, it's a beautiful song. It's very much earned its place, and I'm happy that it's on the album because it's great.
Hmm.
That
Okay,
was hard.
so now let's be easier and just talk about our favorites, our Holy Trinity. So Maria, what's your Holy Trinity for Blue?
Yes. Okay. So my three is going to be This Flight Tonight,
Uh,
This Serve Tonight.
This smash
this sir,
tonight.
this hit tonight.
Um, I feel like this song, I mean, it's definitely one of like the tonally more happier moments. Um, but this song in general, I feel like it's like such a like it gives the vibe of like, oh, you heard it so like you heard it a lot when you were little. Like other people were always listening to it around you, like adults were listening to like Joni Mitchell in general, or like a song like this, or like California around you. So it has sort of like an allure to me of like, oh wow, like cool, like very sophisticated music about sophisticated emotions. And for some reason, like this song is kind of like the center point of that, like kind of nostalgia feeling for me about this. Because I feel like I just heard this a lot, like just in bits and pieces when I was little, but like n my parents didn't listen to Joni Mitchell around me, or it was never like an intentional thing. So for that, like that this song in particular just like gives me some of that nostalgia. But I mean, it's just so good. The song's amazing. I love like the Star Bright like lyrics in it, and it's so, like it just kind of makes you feel like oh, it harkens back to like summer when you were little and whatever, and like oh, this is what your mom listened to, and while you were like playing in the backyard. It's like whatever. It just kind of gives me that. But I think this song is spectacular. So that's my number three. My number two is The Last Time I Saw Richard. I mean, I could repeat everything that Levi said, but I think this is such a cool album closer because then it does kind of end on a sour note in a way
Well,
of
yeah, and
like
like literally a minor chord.
yeah, yeah. So, so I thought that was very intriguing. And yeah, I mean, the song is just so good. I love it. So that's my number two. And then my number one is River. So, I mean, one of my favorite, I thought there would be some sort of reaction. No one said anything.
I
But
mmmed. Did you
you,
not hear my
oh,
mm?
no, I didn't hear that. Mm.
Girl, I mmmed.
Okay. Well, something I will say is that "Tis the Damn Season" is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs,
As it should be.
Right.
on Everslay. And this
Everlord.
Everlord. And this obviously was giving me that, like, I feel like this was like the Mark One of like a melancholy Christmas song
Yeah, it's a
that's like
depressing Christmas
about
song.
relationships. And then there's River, and then there's "'Tis the Damn Season." So I just felt like those were very correlated in that sense. But yeah, this one I think was definitely my favorite for that reason because it's just so unique. I mean, very similarly to what Taylor does on "'Tis the Damn Season," I think it's just such a cool backdrop for a song, for like a kind of like a mushy gushy like depressing like breakup song, is like the backdrop of Christmas is also happening. Like that's just so specific, but it's not a Christmas song, you know? It's not like "Last Christmas" by Wham. That's like, oh, well, that's a Christmas song. Like we're gonna play that on the radio at Christmas time. Like these songs are not like that. It just happens to take place environmentally during the holidays, which I just
Yeah.
think is so fun and unique. So yeah, those are my top three.
Amazing. Love that top three. Okay, Drew, give us your Holy Trinity.
Okay, my this was really hard to pick my three. But I ended up going with known Levi fave, my old man. Um,
Hey, the frying pan is too wide, mama.
yeah. Um, just because there was a lot of things I could have gone with for my number three, but honestly, the reason that I ended up choosing it was because every time after I listened to the album, I kept humming the "We Don't Need a Piece of Paper" melody. I think it's like so pretty. So that's ultimately why I ended up going with it because I had some sort of reason. Um, but then my number two. My two and one are pretty solid. Um, my number two is California. Yeah, I kind of just love everything about it. The vocals are insane. I think this is probably my favorite vocal performance on the album is in California. Um, I just think like it's some of the best that anyone has ever like sounded on a song. So yeah, that's going with that. And then my number one is the icon that she is, Miss Carrie.
I love Carrie. Girl, you
It's
going to the
just
Mermaid
so fun.
Cafe? You're gonna go to the
Uh-huh.
Mermaid Cafe?
Yep. It's like it comes in the perfect place
It
too.
does. Yeah, after fucking Little Green.
Like
My
it
God,
just
you need it.
it's everything. I didn't know it
It's
was a single too.
yeah. Your top two were the singles. Carrie in California. You're so commercial.
Record producer Drew.
Literally,
No,
Adar.
I mean, Carrie, like I listen it was one of those after I listened to the whole album, I went back and listened to Carrie like 10 times
No,
and
it's so
then
good.
I continued.
It's also just like it's the album needs it. Like it can't just be all the doom
Oh,
and gloom. Like it needs that like levity of Carrie. And like it's the perfect song to do that.
but like even it's crazy because in the context of the full album, like listening to Carrie, you do kind of get sad
You do get sad. You get sad. Yeah.
because you're like, oh, like she like actually is happy about something, but you know that like the next song is called Blue on an album about being depressed. Like,
Well, and it's like kind of like a fake form of happy because
yeah,
it's she's existing in this vacuum. She's escaping all of her troubles, but like it's not reality, you know?
yeah. Something I texted Levi about to bring Queen Swift back into the convo. I was like, I really want Taylor to write a song like this. Like I want her to have her own Carrie.
about Travis Kelce.
about Travis. I think that would be so fun.
Oh, girl. Imagine just like singing a song, just instead of saying
Uh,
Carrie, you say
oh,
Travis.
maybe instead
Oh,
of
Trav.
Travis, get out, you can.
Trav.
and then the single art is him in like the suit that he had to wear for the tux for when he went on stage that one
Oh,
time
for
with
the
the
Air
cane.
Tour. Yeah. No, I
Um,
love Carrie.
I think maybe the next Taylor album or re-record whatever she wants to release, I think it could honestly get scrapped because I think she should just do a cover album of this.
Oh, it would sell 5 billion copies first week.
5 billion.
Five
Literally,
billion
And I
copies
want her to
first day.
recreate the album cover.
everybody would be gagging. If
We'll do
she
Taylor's
ever
version.
covered any of these songs, uh,
Any of them.
World
you
collapse.
you'll never see me again because I will be dead. I will
Like,
die
what? Okay, the
instantaneously.
question for Levi, what song do you want her to, if you could only have her cover one of them, is there one that you would think she would sound the best on?
Yes, and it's
Is it
my
in your
favorite.
top three?
It's
Okay,
my
okay,
number
okay.
one, so I'm not going to say
Okay,
it
okay.
just yet. Okay, I guess it's my turn though. So, like Drew, my number three was really hard. My number one and two were locked and loaded. Always has been those two. I had five songs that I was alternating between for my number three spot. And like legitimately at various points this past week, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna go with this one. And then I will change my mind again. I don't know which one I'm gonna say. I'm down to like two. I think I'm gonna go with my gut. My gut is telling me this one. I'm gonna go with the last time I saw Richard. I'm gonna go with it. Like
Yes.
it's just sorry, I don't mean to do Drew shade, but it is just
Well,
like
I did Levi Shade for my number three, so
yeah, you
you can
did.
do Drew Shade.
You did. It's just like it's so astounding. I think that like just in terms of that, I mean, how long is that song? That song is it is where's the track list on?
It's
It's
4:16.
oh, Wikipedia says 4:15, so someone's lying.
Spotify's a liar.
Whatever. In the span of like 4-ish minutes, so much is given to you. She's able to like pack such a punch with just a line. I mean, that line about like all romantics meet the same fate, like that to me is one of the all time lyrics. But then like there's just moments to me that are so devastatingly gorgeous. Like when she goes, when you gonna realize they're only pretty lies, only pretty lies. Like that whole part I think is absolutely beautiful. The end when she says that it's only a dark cocoon before she gets her gorgeous wings and flies away. I think that is so beautiful. Or listen, they sing of love so sweet, love so sweet. When you gonna get yourself back on your feet? Oh, and love can be so sweet. Cause like this song is so dark, and I think you can make the case that this is like the darkest song on the album, except for maybe the title track. But there's like the acknowledgement that like hope exists, but
Hmm.
she's in her dark cafe days. Like she hasn't broken out of the dark cocoon. And it's just so beautiful and like the arc that Richard goes on, I think says so much and it's just it's incredible. I loved the last time I saw Richard. But it was really really hard to pick it over the other songs and Drew mentioned two of the songs. Maria, what was your top three again? What was your number one?
River.
Oh, and what was your three? Flight tonight. This
Flight
served tonight.
tonight. Flight this served
Yes.
tonight, and then Richard.
Yeah. So, but you guys all mentioned some of my runner-ups. My number two, now I'm committing Maria Shade because it is Little Green.
I'm sorry.
Little Green is one of my favorite songs of all time. It is a song that makes me cry every single time I listen to it. I also have a special connection to it because I was born with the moon in Cancer. My moon sign is Cancer, and so
Yes.
I always feel like she's singing about me, and I just find it. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, but like songs about children, I think all kind of elicit a emotional response out of us, and I find this song it's so devastating, but I also find it so selfless and like knowing how like devastating it is for her to like acknowledge these things after she's given up this child because of her circumstances, not because she didn't want the child. but then she still has it in her to like be a mother the only way that she knows how by giving her this advice and like giving her this kindness. And I think a contender for like my favorite lyric of all time, like is for sure top 10, maybe top 5 is oh my God, I have like tears. I have like tears in my eyes just like thinking about saying it. Um, there'll be icicles in birthday clothes, and sometimes there'll be sorrow. Uh, fuck. Like it's like that's like life. Like that is what life is. There will be icicles in life. There will be birthday clothes, and sometimes there will be sorrow. That is what life is like. Fucking Jesus shit. So that's my number two before I dissolve into tears.
I'm so embarrassed that I didn't do my homework.
Girl, why are
Well,
you
no, it's not doing
embarrassed?
your, that's not how you
It's
listen
not
to
not
music
doing your
though.
homework. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay.
be embarrassed.
Okay. Okay.
You're beautiful in your
Well, I
way.
didn't like to be honest, I didn't know like hearing Levi talk about her relationships that she was in at the time. I didn't know any of that. So,
Okay.
You're good, mama.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
Um, okay. And then my number one, I'm honestly shocked that nobody said anything about it. Um, it's a case of you. A Case of You, I do think is like one of the most like Levi Bait songs to exist. Like
huh.
Drew literally a few days ago texted me, your number one is A Case of You, isn't it? Like it's just I think it's like pretty obviously like a song I will resonate with. Uh I was thinking about it in terms of like breakup songs, heartbreak songs. I think the only song I would put above this is like All Too Well. Like to me, it's like just one of the like all time. Get down from there, Kitty. No, get down. You're not supposed to be. You know. Ah, girl, my cat's being naughty as I'm trying to talk about Joni. Kitty, bad kitty. Okay, A Case of You, A Slay of You. It is so heartbreaking. To me, this is when I feel the vulnerability and the intimacy the most. It has my favorite vocal performance on the record. It is so incredibly emotive. And the way that she says certain words, like the way motherfucking Joni Mitchell sings Touching Souls, the way that like her voice sounds, like it's so ephemeral and like beautiful. I'm literally crying just thinking about it. Um, I find it so gorgeous and like the song is like obviously she's still deeply in love with this person, but like they can't be together and like but she wants to go to him even though he's gonna make her bleed. Um, if I love the song so much, and just to like,
Levi's like, I've had such a happy week and is
I
like
know,
weeping to two of the songs that he's probably been listening to all week. Like,
literally. Um, but like, I just need to highlight because this song to me is just chock full of like all time lyrics for me. I just need to repeat them. You know, I like to recite. Just before our love got lost, you said, I am as constant as a northern star. And I said, constantly in the darkness. Where's that at? If you want me, I'll be in the bar. Jesus fucking shit. And then you get this beautiful imagery in the chorus about like, if this person was wine, like you wouldn't knock me out. Like I could drink a case of you and like I would still be on my feet because of how deeply I love you. And you're so bitter, but you're also sweet. And then, oh, I'm a lonely painter. I live in a box of paints. I'm frightened by the devil, and I'm drawn to those ones who ain't afraid. I remember that time you told me, you said, love is touching souls. Surely you touched mine. Because part of you pours out of me in these lines from time to time. And I'm not done, because we got to go to the third verse. And she meets a woman. Joni meets a woman, and the woman had a mouth like yours. She knew your life. She knew your devils and your deeds, and she said, "Go to him, stay with him if you can, but be prepared to bleed." I think that could also be a thesis statement of the album. I would go with the cafe line, but go to him, stay with him if you can, but be prepared to bleed. Like, I think that's very much sums up what this record is about and what
that
she
is
was
such
going
a
through.
Taylor line
It's
too.
such a Taylor line. This is the song I want Taylor to sing. I want Taylor to sing. If Taylor Swift, Taylor, I know you're listening.
Imagine if like on one of if she ever has a breakup album again, like what if she did like a cover of a Joni Mitchell song or like
Even like I
interpolated
would
it
just
or
love her to do
something?
like like BBC Live Lounge. Like I would love her to do that
Yeah.
again and cover A Case of You.
Yes.
Because she's covered really good stuff on she did Riptide by Vance Joy and I Can't Stop Loving You by Phil Collins. And they're both really great covers. But if she ever Taylor Swift, I know you're listening, please, please, we want it so bad. Please sing A Case of You,
I
please.
don't know if she would do it though, because the beef.
I know, but I need her to. I need her to so bad. Because I know her ass has
Please.
before. I know her ass has cried and sang the song. So that's me. I'm still on my feet, girl. It's a case of you. It really does it for me.
That's just so like I'm so glad that we got to listen to you read the lyrics aloud, to be honest, because it's like hearing them back again, it's like I think her lyricism has such a great way of like making life seem so simple, even though we are experiencing like very nuanced and heavy and like just intense emotions. Like I just love lyrics like I'm a painter, I live in a box of paints. It's like,
It's
okay,
insane. It's insane. Who the
it's
hell
insane.
says that? Who lives in a box of paints?
It's crazy. And it's like over the last week, I've just been like staring at like all of the various Joni Mitchell covers. And I think Ladies of the Canyon is such a great one specifically. But like, I just love that so many of them are paintings. And it's
And
like,
she paints all of them. She if they're painted,
yeah,
she paints them.
yeah. And it's just like, I think you can just, you learn so much about someone,
Mm.
especially who is like a visual artist in that way from like their art. And it's just like such an intriguing companion to the music is the actual her actual paintings. But then yeah, just like simple lyrics like that, it just like makes it like as we're all, operating on various multiple screens every day and like there's like a billion things that happen every day and whatever. It's just like some of her lyricism, it like really makes you think like, wow, well, life is so simple. But then it also makes you think about like the like late 60s and early 70s where it's very easy for us younger folks to be like, oh, well, that time was probably so simple. They didn't have phones, they didn't have social media. They just like, kind of hippy dippied out and painted and sang folk songs. So it's like, well, okay, like the late 60s was actually like an incredibly like turbulent time in America. So it's just like it's such an interesting mirror to the world that we're living in now, like listening
And
to music
people
from
didn't
this
even live
time.
in houses. They lived in a box of paints.
Right.
There were no
Right.
houses.
That.
You just lived in a box of paints.
Hmm. In the Laurel Canyon.
Maria, thanks for saying that. That was really beautiful.
That was really great.
Thank you. But I feel like that's just again like why I like folk music so much because there's so much you can learn about those kind of times politically from this music because so much of it was politically charged. But then it's a very interesting mirror again to what we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
So
And it's
yeah.
also just like, it's kind of, I think why people love art in general, like the notion that human beings, although civilization has changed so much over the course of centuries, like we've all been feeling the same emotions and like going through the same things for all eternity. I mean, that's why Shakespeare still resonates so much beyond like the poetry of his language, is that like what he writes about in his plays and in his sonnets, like we still experience and we still go through. And why like the great novels, Pride and Prejudice, Wuthering Heights, like those books and those films and those songs from so long ago still resonate because we still are going through that and we still feel those things. And like, even though we live in such a different world than, the world that Joni lived in 1971, like, I think we've all felt like the feelings that she's describing on this album. I know I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. And it's like also interesting how you're just mentioning like various moments in human history because it's like we don't say things now the way that Shakespeare obviously would have said things or like something I was thinking about too. It's like I just think the novelty of one of the songs being called My Old Man is so fun because
Yeah.
like that's so chic and savvy to be like to call your significant other my old man. Like no one does that anymore.
No.
So I just think that's so it's such a novelty to have on this album because no one talks like that today. So
And
Also,
she doesn't need a piece of paper from the city hall.
I feel that way in Carrie when she says, you're a mean old daddy. Like nobody would say that now. But that's so
Yeah.
great. You're a mean old daddy, but I like you.
Yeah. Ugh.
Taylor
Uh,
cover now.
now,
Now.
now.
Literally, like, scrap whatever you honestly, I would wait 4 more years for her version of
PS12.
Reputation.
Oh, for
That
reputation.
if we got Blue Taylor's version.
I mean, that is more significant to me as well. So I agree. Blue Taylor's version would be the cause of societal
I
chaos.
honestly, if we didn't get Reputation Taylor's version,
I mean, I'm not gonna venture into even those waters. We're not gonna go there because I'm a snake too. Let's not forget. But oh, I just need her to sing a case of you. I would also take Little Green because I think that she could do really beautiful things with the chorus of Little Green. Ooh,
and
Look what you made
Carrie.
me do.
look
Drink a
who.
case of you. She does a mashup. I don't know.
Okay. Girl, let's break out the utensils. Let's get some scores going.
Okay.
So, I'm really excited to hear what you guys are going to do. So, Drew Fork, stab us with the score.
9.8.
Okay. You've stabbed a 9.8. Maria,
T.
scoop us up something.
Yes, ma'am. Well, that's crazy because I was thinking the exact same thing.
9.8?
This is
Yeah.
def gonna be our highest
I think it
rated.
is
I
because,
mean, undeniable. Like it's just
yeah,
like it's unlike every anything we've ever talked about before, but I mean, it's one of the greatest albums of all time, like universally known. And it's just true. Like it's literally just true. There's
it's
nothing
true.
else to say. So,
You're like that.
Levi,
There's that reaction video
10.
that I, there's that, well, first, there's a reaction video that I love. It's like from a British show, and it's person goes, it's true. No, it's true. It's true. And that's what
women's
you
stories
just said.
matter.
They just
They
matter.
just
They just
matter.
matter.
So
Yeah. So the score I'm gonna
this
slice
is
Levi
music,
and I.
bitch.
It is.
When greatness comes along, bask in it because it's rare.
uh, what a moment to me that is most pleasing in my career. So we're gonna go, Levi and I, if we're slicing it open with a 10. So we have
Hmm.
officially the highest average rating for Pop Girlies, and very fittingly, it takes over the top spot from Miss Taylor. The original queen has taken back her crown.
If she's singing, good luck.
Elizabeth Sparkle wins.
Yeah, literally. Demi couldn't, but Joni could. Let's just say that. Uh, the average score is a 9.86.
And what was Folklore's?
9.76.
Whoa.
Joni's always on Tay's neck.
I mean, it's blue.
It's
It's blue,
blue.
bitch. And
Everything was blue.
everything was blue, girl. Wow, we just did it. We did it, Joe. We did it, Joni.
We did it, Joni.
We did it. Well, Levi, thank you so much for all of your wonderful research and for choosing this
I'm
smash.
so happy that we did
Yeah.
this, and also this is the oldest. I feel like I'm the only person who's going to the past the way that well, I've done all the oldest albums because at the time Ray of Light was the oldest album, and then Like a Prayer was, and now this 71. Somebody beat me. You can't.
Well, and I love how you were
These
gonna do
bitches can't
this.
even spell Prague.
Well, you're gonna have to wait until I pull out a Beatles album and then you guys are gonna moan and groan about it.
Uh-oh.
I I love the Beatles. What the hell?
I like them
What?
too.
Who
Oh,
was
Drew
moaning and
likes the
groaning?
Beatles all of a sudden.
I never said I didn't like them. I just had never listened.
You've never listened to the Beatles?
No, really, no.
They're the Beatles.
Well, I was gonna say, Levi, I love how
Sorry,
you
not to
chose
interrupt.
this, and then Amanda Seyfried decided to audition for the
I
Joni
know.
movie.
She decided to audition for the Joni and then deny that she was auditioning for the Joni movie when she was obviously auditioning for the Joni movie and served. Let's just say that. She
Served.
served. She
She
served.
booked.
She better have booked at least a call, at least a table read, chemistry read with Meryl.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So I believe now Maria is going to tell us what we're doing next week.
Yeah. So we're doing another slightly older album. I mean, not as old as this, but definitely a throwback, definitely a classic. Um, and definitely by an iconic musician. But yeah, so we're gonna be doing Grace by Jeff Buckley. Definitely a classic. I mean, how familiar are you guys with his music, if at all?
I mean, I love his Hallelujah,
I love his
Yeah.
Hallelujah. There was one other song that I knew when I looked at the track list, but I don't remember what it was.
but I've never listened to the
See.
album, so I'm so
Love the
excited.
See.
cover and love
Cover's
that
great.
Ruth Carney is playing him. Hopefully.
In in the movie that's totally happening that I totally still have hope for not. I have to just give up hope. I have to give up hope. It would be too big of a sleigh and no one would be ready for it. So I'm just gonna put it to rest. But yeah, Jeff Buckley,
Trailer
it's
drops tomorrow.
yeah, please. I mean, that would be amazing and I would feel so happy. But yeah, so this is the album that we're gonna talk about. I'm very excited to hear your guys' thoughts. Yeah, I mean, just an incredibly iconic musician. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing. So get ready, Pop Girlies
Yay!
Nation.
From Blue to
Yay.
Grace.
Yes.
Okay, guys. Well, I gotta go kiss the sunset pig, so I'm gonna log off.
I gotta go down to the Mermaid Cafe.
Yeah, you do.
Well, I'm gonna go to Detroit and look for Richard.
Oh,
Girl, I haven't seen him since '68, Mama. I don't know if you're gonna be able to find him.
All right, we'll see. We'll see.
all
Okay.
right. Bye,
Bye, Pop
Shanti.
Bye.
Girlies.